all recognize that generosity is a good thing. We see those that are generous with their time and with their money. We see them as good people. And this is something that's timeless. Aristotle is quoted as saying, the greatest virtues are those that are most useful to other persons. People want to do good and be generous. They see those things as worthwhile. However, it's greed and misinformation that can get in the way of people's good intentions. Take the example published in the New York Times of Jack Brown. He is an executive at Core Services Group, which is a nonprofit in New York City that looks to end homelessness. He was found to have awarded himself more than a $1 million salary. He channeled money from donations and from city grants into real estate corporations that he had shares in, and he hired family members, gave them six-figure salaries and cars. Now, the example of Jack Brown is a reason why we need to start being more knowledgeable on the way that we donate. Now, most of us probably don't have deep pockets that we're just consistently donating out of. So a lot of students normally volunteer. That's their way to be generous. And a lot of them look at orphanages as a great way to volunteer and spend their time. However, they can often go about this in a way that ends up actually harming the children. So this is evident in the story of Nancy G and her son. So Nancy adopted her son from Romania when he was 4 years old, and he was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. This stemmed from his time in an orphanage, where his caretakers were volunteers who were constantly rotating, and he wasn't ever able to go through a healthy attachment cycle. A healthy attachment cycle looks like this. A child has a need, the adult meets that need, and trust is formed between the two, eventually resulting in a stable relationship. Uh, this helps the child learn that they can place trust in people and that they won't be abandoned. Her son didn't get this, and because of that, most likely he will struggle with forming relationships for most of his life. Today, I want to talk about how we can donate better and how we can volunteer better as well, so that we can start helping to our fullest potential. Now, most of us probably don't do a lot of research before we donate. A lot of times it can seem redundant as charities have what they do in their name. But according to the Schreiber Times, not only do people not research where their money is going, but many also fail to understand that not every charity is truly dedicated to a good cause. Sham charities exist where people's only goal is to kind of imitate a real charity, receive donations, and then pocket them. Furthermore, an investigative journaling done by the Tampa Bay Times shows this bar graph. The blue is the total amount of money received by charities. The orange is their soliciting costs. That includes things like salaries, wages, and money paid for advertising. The difference is the amount of money that actually goes to the cause. And the number on the right is the percentage of that is actually cash aid. Some it's as low as 0.5%, which is crazy and a really big reason why we need to be more knowledgeable about how we donate. Now, before I move back into talking about volunteering, I want to preface by saying that the goal of this presentation is not to shame you. A lot of people have worked with orphans, but the goal of this is to learn how to better serve in the future. So research has been done that shows that children need to have a primary caregiver. And the biggest reason for this is that they need to learn how to form trust and form relationships. Orphans don't get this a lot of times. According to research done by Marion J. Bakermans-Kranenberg, a Dutch professor, she says that the rotating shifts and large number of caregivers limit the development of stable relationships between children and caregivers. By the time of their third birthday, many institutionalized children have had as many as 50 or more different caregivers. They've often not been able to establish a personal relationship with any of them. Orphanages are a terrible environment for these children to be trying to form stable relationships. Furthermore, testimonies from workers within these kinds of systems backs this up. In a dissertation done by Tracy Markowitz, she interviews employees within orphan care systems and foster care systems, and they all agree that continuity in relationships is very important for children to develop comfortably and for them to form their own identities. Now, after seeing this, it's very understandable that we need to start finding a way to serve in a way that doesn't put us in the position of acting as primary caregiver. Um, so where do we go from here? How do we translate this into action? So first, I want to talk about donating well. So the FTC, or Federal Trade Commission, gives us 4 steps for how to donate well. The first is to do online research, find a cause that you care about and a charity that addresses that, and then look up this charity's name with terms like fraud or scam to make sure that they actually do what they say they do. Next is to check out the charity's website, find out details on how specifically they address that problem, and how much money of yours is actually going to address the problem. Next is use a tool to review. Something like Charity Navigator can be a great tool. And this just allows you to get more in-depth knowledge about the charity that you're looking at. And finally, check for registration. This can differ state to state, but in California, it's required for charities to be registered. If your charity isn't registered, you should be suspicious. So hopefully by following these 4 steps, we'll be able to start forcing corrupt charities and sham charities out and start giving more money to the charities that do good work. So talking about volunteering with orphans, it can also seem like there isn't a great way to help them without actually interacting with vulnerable children. But according to a study done by Save the Children, around 80% still actually have a living relative. So what this does is this allows us to have different options. Now our goal isn't just to entertain them while they're in an orphanage, it's to get them to family members, to get them to orphanage alternatives that can raise them in a family environment and allow them to have stable relationships. Hopefully by implementing my advice, our class and our community will be able to start helping others to our fullest potential. You can already see the effects of smart donating. Charities like Agape International Missions has put together a SWAT team to go throughout Cambodia and work with local law enforcement to get girls and women out of sex trafficking. Imagine if this was the kind of charity that received the money that was lost to Jack Brown. Or you look at Elevate Orphan, an orphanage alternative that operates in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that has started pairing widows with orphans in an effort to have these children raised in a family environment where they can form stable relationships. Imagine if this was the kind of orphanage that Nancy G's son was raised in. So I hope that what I've been talking about today has been compelling enough to inspire some action. So first, I want to suggest that you bookmark Charity Navigator as a tool to use this later in order to find accurate information. And then I would ask that you donate to one of these 4 charities. They're very highly rated and have been proven to do what they say they do. And there's also a little bit of variety in there, depending on what kind of causes you're passionate about. And then, if you're looking to volunteer in a way that helps serve orphans, any of these organizations would be great. They do things like provide water or do construction projects that can have you helping these children in a way that doesn't put you as primary caregiver. So, thank you all so much for listening, and I'd like to leave you with this quote by Marian Wright Edelman. You really can change the world